I want to talk about something I don't usually talk about on this channel. Not a client's pattern, not a concept from the research, just what's it actually like to build something and not yet be able to point to it and say, there, that worked. Because if you've ever put serious effort into something with a long runway, a business, a practice, a body of work, you will know what I mean. There is a stretch in the middle where the work is real, but the return isn't. And that stretch is harder than people tend to admit. This is what I've been sitting with, and I suspect you've been sitting with something similar. I am May at Evolved Minds. I work with professionals who hold themselves to a high standard, carry more than they let on, and are ready for more ease. This channel is usually about the patterns that get in the way of that, perfectionism, delay, and revision loops, that cost of holding things too tightly. Today is a little different. Today, I'm going to show you what some of that looks like from the inside, in my own work and in a conversation I had recently that stopped me. By the end of this video, you will have a clear picture of what the in-between phase actually feels like for people building something serious. A way of understanding why the silence from the outside world doesn't mean what it can feel like it means. And one question worth sitting with if you are in that stretch right now. Here's the thing about working alone and working on something that takes time to build. The feedback loop is almost entirely absent. You film something, you publish it, and then nothing, or almost nothing. The algorithm doesn't register craft. It doesn't notice the 10-part series you've just completed with a real depth. It registers a thumbnail, a click, a watch time. And if you are someone who's used to effort being visible, to good work being recognized, that absence can start to feel like an answer, like the silence is telling you something. Well, it isn't, but it can feel very much like it. The artist Vincent van Gogh once wrote that he put his heart and soul into his work and lost his mind in the process. I read that differently now than I did the first time. Now I paint sometimes. I know what it is to make something and not know whether it will ever be in front of the right eyes. And I know what it is to keep making it anyway. And what you are actually experiencing is a mismatch between what this kind of work requires, which is time and consistency and a long view, and what your nervous system is used to, which is some form of signal that what you are doing is landing. That mismatch is uncomfortable. And for people who hold themselves to high standards, it can become a question. What's the point? Which sounds like discouragement, but it is actually something more specific. It is the dissonance of high effort meets delay return, and the mind trying to make sense of that gap. I was talking to someone recently, someone I know who's building a business, working across different countries, sometimes at hours that would seem unreasonable to anyone watching from the outside. He said something I've been thinking about since. He said, until the work is visible, rewarded, you just keep trying. You don't stop. But you don't always know why. And I recognized that immediately because it is not really about discipline. It's not about stubbornness or optimism or any of the things that get talked about in that context. It's that you've committed to something. And on some level, you understand that the return when it comes won't come instead of the work. It will come because of it. The work now is the thing that makes the later possible. But that understanding is a cognitive thing, and the body, the nervous system, the part of you that needs to know whether you are on the right track, the part doesn't run on logic, it runs on signals. And when the signal is absent or slow, that's when the question appears. Is this working? Is this worth it? Am I doing this for something or just into the void? Here's what I've come to understand about the silence. The people who will eventually find this work, my work, your work, whatever it is you are building, they're not watching yet. Not because the work isn't good, but because they haven't encountered it yet. Or they're not ready for it yet, or the conditions that will bring them to it haven't happened yet. That's not a failure of the work, that's just timing. And timing is the thing that can't be forced. What can be controlled is the consistency of what you put out. The standard you hold it to, whether the body of work that will be found, when it is found, it is worth finding. That's the only part of this that's actually in your hands. Now, I will be honest about why this has come up for me. I work with professionals, people who are good at things, people who are used to effort, producing a visible result. And many of them come to me at a point where the usual mechanisms push harder, plan better, optimize more, and have stopped producing the return they expect. What I notice consistently is that the discomfort isn't really about the result not being there. It is about the uncertainty of not knowing when, not knowing if. Having to hold the work and then not yet at the same time. That's a particular kind of difficulty, and it's the one that rarely gets named because it looks from the outside someone who's just not there yet. But from the inside, it is a live question every day. If this resonated, please like and subscribe for more related contents and share with those who is working silently alone so that they don't feel alone. If you are in that stretch right now, building something, working alone, putting out work into what feels like silence, here are 3 things worth holding. The first one would be distinguish signals from evidence. The absence of visible response is not the same as evidence that the work isn't landing. It is a signal gap. Those are different things. One is information, and the other is an absence of information, which tells you almost nothing. The question is, are you confusing one for the other? And then also notice what keeps you at the desk. Not the motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but the things underneath it, the reasons the work feels worth doing even when it isn't producing yet. That thing is worth knowing because it is a thing that will carry on through the parts where the return is slow. And then thirdly, ask, is the work worth finding? Not is it perfect, not is it finished. But if the person it is for found this today, would it mean something to them? If yes, keep going. That's the only metric that actually holds. Now, I don't usually do videos like this, but I think sometimes it matters to say, this is what it looks like from here too. The effort without visible return, the commitments to something that is still building, the question of whether it's worth it, which I think if you are doing serious work, you ask more than you let on. The answer for me is yes. Not because I'm certain it will land, but because the work itself is the kind I want to find if I were looking. Well, that's enough for now. If this resonates, please hit the subscribe button below and share with those who's working by themselves. I'm Maya at Both Minds, and I'll see you in my next video. And thank you for watching.